When women prosper, the whole society thrives. There's no tool for collective development more effective than the empowerment of women. But the unpleasant reality is that women are still dying from diseases that can be easily prevented or treated. Women are also deprived of the right to education and opportunities to thrive in life. Discrimination against and oppression of women is a global problem. To correct the problem, certain commitments on the international level have been made. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action adopted by the Fourth World Conference in 1995, the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and the Millennium Development Goals 2000 are a few historic landmarks in this respect. All these have common goals: to ensure gender equality, to protect and empower women against discrimination in the social, economic, health, and legal spheres of life. The government of Pakistan has also made a number of strong policy commitments. The Poverty Reduction Strategy Papers, the National Plan of Action for Women, the Medium-Term Budgetary Framework, the Medium-Term Development Framework, and the Gender Reform Action Plan are some of the means to realize the vision of a developed nation where women empowerment isn't a myth but a living reality.
It is not only a roadmap for the empowerment of women, but it is going to really create some sort of space in the society for those working women at grassroots level. They were not recognized ever about their rights. This is the first time that we are going to give them recognition about their rights. We are going to really patronize their capabilities, their skill, their contributions.
The most important policy statement of the government, the budget, reflects the direction of national policy. The purpose of bringing a gender perspective to the budget is to ensure equality of men and women of different backgrounds and to bridge the socio-economic gulf that exists between the two genders.
What we have learned over the years is that whenever you talk about gender sensitization, the process somehow is not complete unless you also allocate resources to the areas that you prioritize. And that is why the whole concept of gender responsive budgeting came up. It is institutions who try and address gender needs and the gaps, and it is extremely important to then put the resource allocations accordingly. And unless you have accountability of where your resources are going, whether they are actively contributing to your gender targets or not, there is no way that you can judge whether an institution is performing in a gender sensitive manner or not.
In Pakistan, the Gender Responsive Budget was first launched in 2005. The project was implemented by the Ministry of Finance, Government of Pakistan, with the technical and financial support of the United Nations Development Programme and its cost-sharing partners.
The government of Pakistan has taken a great leadership and ownership in this process, and only because of that the project and the gender responsive budget is being so successful in Pakistan. Naturally, we are just at the beginning of a long-term process. These are all the pre-budget tools, all the elements are in place for now, really focusing around the implementation and working together with the line ministries and departments to make sure that these tools are further carried along, especially now with the devolution of some of the key issues like health and education and others. We need to look also how to enhance then the follow-up to the gender responsive budgeting at the provincial level.
The key tools of GRB employed in Pakistan include gender-aware policy appraisal, gender-aware beneficiary assessment, gender disaggregated analysis of the time use patterns, engendering budget call circular, gender budget analysis, and gender budget statement. The GRB project merged into the Strengthening PRS Monitoring Project in January 2008. The tasks started under the GRB continued as core components. Since gender-responsive budgeting is relatively a new concept in Pakistan, a need was felt to conduct activities for awareness raising through advocacy and conducting nationwide research studies and surveys.
I think what is interesting, and I've worked in many countries on gender-responsive budgeting, I think what is interesting in Pakistan is how closely it's being linked with the medium-term budget framework reforms that are ongoing. In some ways that makes it a slower process because the medium-term budget framework itself is a process that you have to take time to get ministries involved. But I think it also means that the GRBI will be more well institutionalized because it has been built into the budget call circular, the different ministries have been trained in how to do it, and similar processes will happen each year.
In 3 pilot sectors, health, education and population welfare, gender-aware policy appraisals and gender-aware beneficiary assessment were carried out. First of its kind in Pakistan and even among the countries of South Asia, a time use survey was conducted nationwide in 2007. Incorporation of amendments in the budget call circular is another milestone achieved through the GRB. Gender budget analysis and gender budget statements are effectively helping the government to integrate and mainstream gender dimensions in the budgetary process. Workshops and background studies, TV talk shows and news bulletins, newspaper articles, development and dissemination of resource material are some of the routes taken to reach the destination of a well-aware and well-developed nation. Starting with situation analysis, examining policies and carrying out budgetary analysis, gender-aware policy appraisals determine the extent to which resource allocations are contributing towards narrowing the gender gap. The appraisal covers all 3 levels of government: federal, provincial and local. Gender-aware policy appraisals of the education sector in Jacobabad, Sindh and of the health sector in Gujarat and Rajanpur, Punjab have been carried out successfully.
Gender-responsive budgeting is a very important tool for achievement of gender equity. Pakistan, being a responsible international player, is signatory to many international obligations. And one of the most important ones, as we all know, is the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. And out of those 8 goals, 3 relate directly or indirectly toward gender equity.
This tool aims to gather information on the views of the actual and potential users of public services. Policy makers need to know if public money is spent in a way that meets citizens' needs and fulfills their demands with respect to quality. Because women and men often have different priorities and needs, they might have different perceptions of what is useful to them. Gender-aware beneficiary assessment survey was undertaken for the pilot districts of Rajanpur, Gujarat and Jacobabad to determine the level of satisfaction of beneficiaries in the health and education sectors. Pakistan is the first and only country in South Asia where a nationwide time use survey has been conducted. The survey covered 19,600 households and recorded round-the-clock activities of 38,600 respondents. Daily activities were categorized into System of National Accounts activities, Extended System of National Accounts activities, and Non-System of National Accounts activities. The activities falling under SNA are paid or marketable activities, the work which is included in the estimation of the gross domestic product, GDP, such as wage employment, primary and secondary production work, etc. Extended SNA activities are unpaid work such as house maintenance, care of the sick, the elderly and children, cooking and cleaning. Non-SNA activities are non-marketable and do not constitute work. such as sleeping, eating, learning, personal care and leisure activities. The survey results show that rural males spend 22.5% of time on SNA and less than 2% on extended SNA activities, whereas rural females spend 6.8% on SNA and 20.5% in extended SNA activities. Thus, rural men spend more time on economic and para-economic activities as compared to rural women.
जब मैंने ये ट्रेनिंग हासिल की थी तब मुझे भी शऊर नहीं था कि हमारे हक क्या हैं। तो अब जब मैंने ट्रेनिंग हासिल की फिर मैंने सोचा कि क्यों ना हम अपनी दूसरे देहात की औरतों को आगाही दें, हम उनको बताएं कि उनके हुकूक क्या हैं। हम और मर्दों को क्यों नहीं बताएं कि औरतों के हुकूक क्या हैं।
Strengthening the PRS monitoring project in pursuance of the GRB has led to collaboration with the Mid-Term Budgetary Framework Secretariat, and as a result, additional gender-sensitive amendments in the MTBF budget call circulars have been introduced. Gender-sensitive amendments in the MTBF BCC have effectively been implemented in 5 ministries including Education, Health, Population Welfare, Social Welfare and Special Education, Human Rights, and Food and Agriculture. One of the most significant achievements of the project is that these amendments not only demonstrate the commitment of the government to GRB, but also indicate the adoption of concrete measures towards institutionalizing a gender perspective in the established budgetary forms and procedures. Analyzing the budget through a gender lens entails the study of public budgetary allocations by dividing them into service and non-service related allocations. The aim of gender budget analysis is to accumulate the budgetary information and examine the government's budgetary priorities from a gender perspective. This is based on the fact that certain public services are more important for women than for men and vice versa. The federal budget 2008-2009 shows a notable increase in women-specific expenditures by keeping in mind the needs of the female segment of society rather than allocating money in a gender-blind manner.
अगर हम औरतों की तरक्की की बात कर रहे हैं तो मेरे नज़दीक जब तक औरतों के लिए वसाइल मुख्तस नहीं होंगे, जब तक औरतों के लिए बजट रखा नहीं जाएगा, आप बेहतर तरक्की औरतों के हवाले से नहीं देख सकेंगे। इसलिए जो बजट है इसमें हमें ज़्यादा दबाव डालना पड़ता है कि इस बजट को जेंडर सेंसिटिव बनाया जाए। इस बजट के अंदर औरतों के जो सिनफी मसाइल हैं उनको ज़्यादा अहमियत दी जाए। हम समझते हैं कि बजट के अंदर औरतों के लिए ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ रखेंगे तो ऑब्वियसली इसका बराह रास्त असर सिर्फ औरतों पे नहीं होगा, बल्कि आपकी पूरी मुल्क की मईशत के ऊपर और पूरे मुल्क की तरक्की के ऊपर आप देखेंगे कि जो जेंडर बजट है वो औरतों को एक तरक्की के धारे में शामिल कर सकता है।
To what extent do policies, projects and programs funded by the budget reflect gender consideration? The government uses this accountability tool to inform parliamentarians and members of civil society about money allocated for initiatives to advance gender equality. This tool examines how expenditures affect gender equality. The gender budget statement for education, health and population welfare sectors in the Punjab and also at the federal level were issued after a series of consultative workshops. A handbook for government officials is also one of its proud accomplishments. We cannot deny that there's need to nurture a culture that meets the needs of men and women equitably, of reviewing resource allocation in line with priorities of men as well as women, and of promoting transparency in government policies and public spending. The GRB is opening doors to a new era of harmonized prosperity throughout the country.